So we'll start because we don't have much time. So we've arrived at the point where I know that I am in this world. I'm in dunya, in body, form, soul, and nafs. I know I'm in this world, but I know that I am not of this world. I'm not of this world, therefore meaning I come from somewhere, my origin is from somewhere else. I have this capsule which is called body, which I'm able to move through this dunya, this world, but then I move on. As soul, I move on. So, in this world, not of this world. Meaning, I'm not in this world to own anything. But at the same time, not to be controlled by anything. The command of Allah is His decree and His will. So therefore, my point of attention is my Rabb. My point of attention is not other than my Rabb. In terms of what is expected of me. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Hence the verse that man was not created, jinn and man was not created except to worship Allah. In other words, Allah is the point of attention. Allah has always been the point of attention. And my journey is towards Him. My journey is from Him. But for a moment, I am in this world. We've got that. So just to look at soul in relation to self. Soul is that divine entity. Soul is energized by soul is energized by the Spirit of Allah. Right? Soul is energized by the soul of Allah. And inshallah, I will be sending to Sheikh Muslim a book called the Quranic Prescription to Life. In it is, one of the chapters is Adamic Self, where all the relevant verses regarding this particular discourse that I've done with you for the last 2 days, all the relevant verses for all of these pointers are there, which you can revise and then go and read further up in the Quran. So, soul is energized by the Spirit of Allah, but soul also has a shadow. Its shadow, that part of it pointing the world, this dunya, is called self. Self has within it a higher and a lower disposition. It has that potential. Self is interacting in and with dunya. Self. That part which is engaging the dunya. So self is interacting in this world and with dunya. In other words, self related to body and senses and brings it to life. Through self, an engaging world, through our senses, it brings this entire entity to life. Suddenly, what was frozen suddenly has life and moves. Okay? But the essence, the root of self is soul. And the root and essence of soul is Ruhullah. Huh? Are there any questions on that? Are there any still battling with it? Because I think that is what I try to achieve over the 2 days in terms of our engagement with self and soul. I did not spend time on going into the various layers of self. What I did put some attention to this morning was helping to define the contented self and how through it we are in fact expressing gratitude because of that state that we're in, and with that gratitude comes the rahmah of Allah that has been granted to that soul and to that nafs, and through that rahmah we find we are in fact awakened in every sense, aqilan and arifan. Aqilan in terms of knowledge of purpose of my existence and engagement with dunya, and I have the notion of it and I have the knowledge of it. Aqilan and arifan, right? So are we okay with this? There's one question. Yeah. I think when Sheikh Abdul Aziz yesterday spoke about ego, when the term ego is used, it generally implies acting beside yourself, seeking attention from other, being dominant in a situation over others. So we would normally refer to it as egotistic. So when we refer to ego, then that is one of the negative traits of the lower self.
The layers of self, can just a quick version.
We spoke about the layers of the self, the commanding self, that part of us that gets us into trouble, the boastful self, the blaming self. The blaming self is that part of us that reminds us of what it is we are doing that is inconsistent with our ruh. Then we have all the positive traits of the self that helps us raise again and repent, in others, return back to our original self. Original self is that part which is in contentment. Mutma'inna. Ya ayyuhan nafsun mutma'inna. In that realm, we are closest and most attuned to the frequency of our soul. And of those traits that is evident that we are in that state of contentment is gratitude. The rahmah of Allah is with us, as we spoke earlier, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So on the one hand you have all these different layering of the self, and on the other hand we have all the different qualities and favors granted on the self that finds itself contented. But I'm going to write it out again and I'm going to pass it on to Sheikh and inshallah make it available to all of you. Are we okay with that?
What happens to the self when the soul departs the body?
Okay. The self and the soul. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says in hadith, يَتْبَعُ الْمَيَّةَ ثَلَاثَ أَهْلُهُ مَالُ وَعَمَلُهُ وَيَرْجِعُ إِثْنَانِ عَمَلُهُ وَيَرْجِعُ إِثْنَانِ أَهْلُهُ وَمَالُهُ وَيَبْقَى وَاحِدٌ عَمَلُهُ. That the deceased, when he's on his way to his grave, two things go back home. Your wealth and your family. And that which goes with him to your grave is your act. The total sum of all your thoughts and action that came about because of your thoughts, the total sum of all of it, that takes on its persona, which is nafs. And when the soul is in its barzakh, and Allah causes the soul to wake from the sakaratil maut, the drunken state of maut, and settles into barzakh, and a form will come before soul, and soul will say, "Who are you?" And the form will then inform the soul, "I am the total sum of what I did in the world. I am the product of what my nafs got up to in this world." In so many words. So soul will see what had become of itself. And hence there is Jahannam and Jannah. Now the purification of self so that it can return back to its original state, which is in harmony with soul. So it's like this. in the best way possible. C2 frequencies. Actually better. That was from the movie Star Wars. Okay. Okay, now this is a basin. Okay, so let's call this lower self. The objective here is two lines. The one line we want to have still, the other we want to blow up. Okay, so that's what the lower line represents. Sorry.
Once again.
Okay. Let's assume self and soul. Okay, so, sorry, higher self and lower self, right? Higher self and lower self. So every time we act in the negative, we are creating a hole in ourself. This hole becomes so huge eventually from all our acts of indecency and all that which is despicable, that it weighs us down. And out of this pus comes depression and comes all those qualities that leads to further doubt, that leads eventually to our end. Okay? So this self here, lower self here, did not give itself a chance for repentance. Repentance. Now the two key words in this phrase here, the two key words, one is re for return, and pentance from the word pentagon. So where's a pentagon normally in a building? It's normally the most flashiest apartment, which is normally on top of the building. Correct? To return, you got to take the elevator or the escalator to get to the top, isn't it? So return, repentance, is to return to your higher state, higher self, or to your original self, or to your angelic self. Okay? So, how do we get rid of this dirt inside this hole? We're talking about that. When we use it's in relation to repentance. How do we clean this up? So that we can bring this balloon, this sack of darkness, back to a straight line and elevate into a higher self where it becomes the balloon through which we take off. Okay, you got that? Cool. How do we clean up this? Every letter of the Quran, Alif, Lam, Mim. Every act of servitude, every act of goodness in any way, through thought, through tongue, through action, becomes the white water. Okay, red for now, but let's assume the Zamzam. It becomes the Zamzam. That fills it up again and flushes out everything and allows this to return to ground zero, for it to return back to that state of harmony, as opposed to. And then once this is done, and we continue with goodness, we continue with our virtuous actions and engagement, where does all that go now? Well, now that becomes the positive. Oops. So that becomes the positive now. Okay, wait, let's not use green. Red, let's use green for prosperity. That becomes the green. Here we go. So lower self now becomes a flat line, and higher self becomes the balloon that takes off into the sama. And to make it even more nicer, higher self takes on all those beautiful colors, orange and green. Sibaghat Allah. وَمَا أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ سِبَغَةً وَنَحْنُ لَهُ عَابِدُونَ. Sahih? So take on the color of Allah in Surah Baqarah. And what is better than the color of Allah? Goosebumps. And that's higher self. That we reflect the colors that resonates within the soul, and that is evident that we are in sajda again. We are at the altar celebrating and worshipping our Rabb as soul. Are we okay with this? Are we clear with this? Any questions? Anything that you want to say that's what you want to pour out?
I have a question.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, ladies first.
I wonder about the concepts of the translation to Swedish and so on. The soul and spirit, how do you relate them to each other?
That's what we're going to come to now, yeah.
Okay.
You said that blaming oneself is a negative thing.
Yeah. No, blaming self is not a negative thing.
It's not negative.
No,
Okay.
the blaming self is telling you, hey, stop your nonsense. Hey, you are lying to yourself again. This is very commonly used in many of the Sufi tariqas
Okay, so it's not
as part of waking up from your own headspace that you make believe you're one's own crap. So that's one of many and in the Sufi traditions, for each of these layers, there's an entire science of first of all understanding it and how to work it, how to work through it, and how to work out of it if it's of course something which is negative to you. So inshallah, like I said, with this there's all those layers, and inshallah I'm sure Sheikh Muslim will can spend more time elaborating on this. But the point of course is how to stop filling it with negativity and instead fill it with light again, so that we can bring it back to stillness and allow the rest of what we plow in this earth, in this lifetime, to start creating the balloon effect, which is in fact referring to the higher self, so that we can take off again and become one with our source, which is our self that resonates and basks in the light of Allah.
I just had is it constantly, can it be at the same time feeling down and up, or is it
One of the
other?
One of the concepts in the very principle of Iman, al-imanu yazidu wa yankus. This is one very commonly spoken of in when we do the study of Iman. Iman is something that fluctuates. It can go up and go down, and go up and go down. Because what it actually means is it reflects the state of heart. And that is where we're going to come to now. Okay? Okay, so I'm taking this off the board and keep it in your hearts, inshallah. One of the translations of the word qalb, inqilab. What is the meaning of inqilab? Sorry?
Revolution.
What? Give me some meanings. Revolution. Any other words?
Turn.
Turning. That's right. Another word? Spinning. Right. And that's the meaning I prefer most when we make reference to qalb. Can you all see this? Okay, I'll just do the same here. Heart. qalb. Inqilab. It means to spin freely. Revolution, what brings about a revolution?
Change in the situation.
Constant change. Or simply movement. So we use the term, how many revolutions can this wheel make, for example? So you see how we use the word revolutions. So in other words, the heart spins because it is the house of the soul. It is the house of the soul, of ruh. I like to term heart as when we say the house of the soul, we also have masjid. What is masjid? House of Allah. Isn't that so?
Yes.
So what is the heart then in essence? Masjidullah. The house of Allah. It is the doorway through which you are in constant dialogue with your Lord. That is why we have the masjid that we make reference to as the house of Allah. Now when you step in there, one gentleman is here, he slept here yesterday, remember? Snoring, if I'm correct in saying so. We had a nice chat outside earlier. Because I asked him, what happened? I said to him, you got the entire lecture because you heard it from your heart. So he says, whenever I am in a space where there is sujood being made or Allah's name is spoken of, I find myself in a state of sakina and I fall asleep. And he says, in Denmark, when he finds himself in that state of such restlessness that he goes to the masjid to sleep because he can't sleep at home. And last year when he left the majlis, he said when he left, if I may share it with him.
Of course.
When he left here, sorry I should have asked you first.
No.
I just got ahead of myself there again. When he left here last year, he said he went into a depression for 3 days. And he went to university, he didn't go home, he went straight to university. And he stayed on campus for 3 days because he didn't want to go home. And it was as if he didn't want the journey to end. That experience is when self is in unison with soul. It doesn't want the party to end. Because now it is at the banquet with its Lord. And is in that state of perpetual prayer. الَّذِينَ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمٌ. One who is in a perpetual state of salah is the one who is inseparable because of being in that state of dhikrullah.
Can you repeat?
Perpetual state of prayer. In other words, that he or she finds herself in that state of remembering Allah perpetually and does not want it to end. That is how much the self longs to stay in Qibla. So what is above the Masjidullah? And this I have to do in black. Oh, where is this black? Okay. What is this? This is the Kaaba. And what is above the Kaaba? So what is the Qibla of the heart? And we struggle with that in this dunya because we are in denial of this. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. And hold on to the rope of Allah. This is our Qibla. This is the Qibla of the soul. It is connected in such a way that if we, as nafs, if we tear ourselves away from it, we leave ourselves. I've got these colors all around me now. We leave ourselves in a state of blackness. Not black, darkness, sorry. Darkness. So we leave ourselves in a state of darkness. Let's get back here. So, this line that I drew here, قد نرى تقلب وجهك في السماء فلنولينك قبلة ترضاها فولي. Rasulullah stood. He longed that he could just be in that contact with his Lord. And what did Allah say to him? He said, turn to Makkah. And this was the completion of the line between Ruh and Rabb. These are phenomena that we are inseparable of. And self to come to that realization, and all of it is happening in the heart. All of it is happening in the heart. The part of the heart, the inner walls of the heart that faces the soul, that part of the heart is called the fu'ada. And what is the meaning of fu'ada? It means a brilliant spark. In other words, a fierce burning spark. Because that's what's happening. The soul is burning that brightness into the walls of the heart. And it is from there we draw our inspiration. That is where determination comes from. That is the part of the heart that faces the soul. And the other wall that faces towards dunya, that is the part of the heart that becomes nafsi. And that is how we coexist and exist. One with our Rabb and coexist with existence as Allah has designed it. Whether you turn to the east or whether you turn to the west, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا, what are you going to find? وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. What are you going to find? Face of Allah. Face of Allah. تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكِ. And in all of this, what we talk of creation, Allah says, it is all of it just resting in my hand. That is what the Ruh is experiencing as istiraha. Habibi, what's the meaning of istiraha? To rest. Because that is the state of the Ruh. It is resting in the palms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the palms of the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all in the Quran. It is all in the Quran. But like Shaykh said, that we have spent our entire lives trying to perfect only the aspect of how to pray and the do's and the don'ts, which constitutes only about 2% of the entire record of the Quran. The rest is about the relationship between us and our Lord. And that is the part that we have failed at. But that is the part that we need to pick up and become attuned to again, inshallah. So, are there any questions regarding this? So there's the bubble of the heart. This is the outer hole of the heart and the inner hole of the heart. The inner hole of the heart is that part which resonates with ruh. The heart becomes affected. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا. The heart becomes affected by how the nafs behaves. In the same breath, when the heart hears the recital of Quran or hears Allah's word, it brings relief. Why? Because the heart has to not only contain this battle between self as in higher and lower, as we discussed earlier, but also how it's affecting its journeying, its spinning. So the heavier the nafs becomes in its the lower self, the heavier it becomes, the slower the heart begins to spin. Until eventually the heart shuts down. So you see what can happen if nafs becomes too heavy? It can kill the heart. Right? I'm not going to go too deep in some of the terminologies. So east and west, it meets within the heart. Soul and self. Inshallah, hopefully I will come next year and give you a better description in terms of my drawings. It's just the best I have at the moment. Sheikh, is that accurate enough for you? Sheikh is just saying yes, to keep the peace. No.
There's a question.
Yes.
So, all Muslims normally we like to aim to have the Jannah, and we all try to have this high level of nafs we are talking about. And by the way, we feel such strong spirituality when we are having such gathering, and we are meeting special persons like yours and Sheikh Muslim, and also you are present here. But the only problem we used to face generally in our daily life, and I think it's a big part of Muslims face that, is that we don't have a way to have this continuous balance in our spirituality. In Ramadan, for example, we feel that it's a little more higher.
Yeah.
When we are in this special gathering, we feel that it's really especially different and more higher and more pure. But the problem is that how we can get that in our daily life. Prophet ﷺ was, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. So all his behaviors was in the Quran. How we can not have this level, but at least be close to it every day. How we can have this continuity, even if we say goodbye to Surah, we say goodbye to this gathering, we say goodbye to Ramadan. How we can have this, how we can have the case of finding the balance ourselves and find the case.
Continuity. You are talking about continuity.
Yeah.
The continuity is, as Sheikh Hafifuddin yesterday mentioned, is to find those who are on the path that you find yourself on. And by that I mean the path of wusta. This is the path of moderation. This is not a special club or anything of this kind. This is really what it is. The alignment of self and ruh in harmony with each other, and so you seek out others with the same objective and keep company with each other and find your projects within that. And at the same time you have Sheikh Muslim in Stockholm. You have Sheikh Muslim is very much aware of the work that is done there in Gothenburg as well, and so it's now just a question of what my wife said earlier, networking. Now you connect. Now you find your pockets of people, whether it is in Stockholm or on travel. Frankly speaking, my wife and I, we only move through Sufi circles, period. We don't move any other way. So we are constantly the guests of Allah. And this is how it should be. Because when you're in my town, I make your khidmat. When I'm in your town, you make my khidmat. Finish. We pray together, we eat together, we cry together, we laugh together, we go shopping together. Or rather, you and my wife. Oh, Morocco! I love you, my sister. My daughter, we sent her to, before she went to university, we took her out of varsity, after school. We sent her to Morocco for a month, and she went to go and spend a month in Ramadan with one of the families whom we are very connected to because of the path. And there she had the time of her life. Then she went over to another family in Nepal, in Calcutta in India. She spent 3 months there. She went to the Buddhist monastery. She went to the tree of Buddha. She went there. She meditated. The leaf fell in her hand. She thought, I'm on my way. Buddha, here I come. She got up from that. She went down. She did the whole ceremonial walk around the shrine of Buddha. And in doing so, she came to a point and she just heard, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The town nearest. She said, what am I looking for? So, and then this is the roller coaster life of my family. My point is, you find your circle. You find your heart with those whose hearts are connected to you. Keep each other's company. And become each other's veil. Become each other's aura. Become each other's soundboard. Become each other's comforter. Become each other's advisor. And periodically, make sure that you also visit the Sheikh. Visit Sheikh Muslim. He has an amazing majlis at home. I want to take a whole majlis home with me. With a massive Apple screen this big. We could run 6 programs simultaneously. I love that. MashaAllah. My point is, there is amongst you enough resources. There is amongst you enough personalities. There are women here from Sheikh Fadlala, Sheikh Asif's community that has been working in the communities for 30 years. There's people here that can tell you about what happened on the shores of Sweden 30 years ago. MashaAllah, I am so proud to see the effort that was made by Sheikh Fadlala and Sheikh Abdul Qadir and Sheikh Asif and many others 30 years ago, that this is the result of their effort. They have done well. They've seeded the ground with beautiful seeds. And here we are today, having this amazing banquet. So there's no shortage for you. You make a list of everyone who's here, and then you map your way through from now to the next gathering. You make sure every Friday is Jummah for you. Not at that masjid where there's no sound and you have to sit in a little cocoon. No, I'm not talking about that. Your Jummah is to meet with women who's on the same path, that like you, and enjoying this being in this realm of self-consciousness, self-awareness, and so forth. And continue the journey of developing and reading and researching and going out and doing small little projects. But keep in touch with Sheikh Muslim, because this is your go-to man. He is my go-to man. He is my go-to man. We're playing golf next month, inshallah. I don't have much time. Let me just not get too carried away here. So, to close off with this where we have been over the last few days. Sublime consciousness, conditioned consciousness. Conditioned consciousness meaning that which is limited. As long as we are earthly bound, we will never know the whole story. We will never know the full story. That is why in modesty and in humility, we will always say, Wallahu A'lam. Whatever we have tried to achieve here, whatever we've set out to do here, whatever we have shared here with one another, in whichever way, whatever we have done and committed to, worked through, how much tears we've shed, how many laughs we've made, remember all of it. Wallahu A'lam. This is all about Him. It's always been just about Him. And it will always just be about Him. That is where our humility lays. So conditioned consciousness is work on that all the time. The Qibla of the self is the house of Allah. The Qibla of the soul, Arsh of Allah. You have the best of both worlds. Dunya and Akhirah. The point of attention of nafs is outward. It's dunya. The point of attention of soul is heavenly. And it is from there we draw divine wisdom, hikmah, that we were discussing yesterday. Point of self in terms of earthly bound is to draw earthly wisdom. Know how the world works that you're living in. But do not deny yourself access to the soul which is heavenly bound, so that you too can be blessed with divine wisdom. Remember the difference between self and soul. Self is conditioned consciousness. Soul is sublime. Soul is free from conditioning. Soul is free from influence. Whatever self gets up to, it will carry its own burden, but it will be presented to the soul in its barzakh. Everything to do with conditioned consciousness has got to do with Sharia and Tariqah. Everything that's got to do with soul is Haqiqah. And that is why, to conclude with, when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam came to the Prophet, he asked him these three questions. What is Sharia? What is Tariqah? And finally, what is Haqiqah? How many minutes do I have, question? Done? Any questions? Any final remarks? I hope that I've achieved what I set out to do, and I hope that I was appropriate enough in how I went about it. Please forgive me if I was misbehaving at times. If we don't give the lower self a little bit of attention sometimes, it will get out of hand. So sometimes it wants to act wild and crazy. Just mashallah, hey, make such stuff. Just one question I was asked, which I want to just quickly. One of the gentlemen earlier asked me that he's been reading the work that we were given, and he wanted to know a methodology of reading the book. So I gave him the example. I said, we were discussing Adamic self. Take the word Adamic self and read through all the chapters and highlight every time you see the word Adamic self, Adamic blueprint, any Adamic and phrases with it. Then write it out of the book onto your page, onto a page separately. And then read through it until it begins to help you sketch some picture in your mind as to what is the objective behind the notes with regards to Adamic self. Once you've completed that, find another word and start building another trend of writing around it until such time you begin to grasp the knowledge of the book. The difference between a lot of Sheikh's work, especially this particular book of Sheikh Fadlala, it's not a novel, so you're not going to read the book from the top to the bottom, from top to the bottom. This book, in fact, you don't read from up to down. This book you read from side to side. So Adamic self will be on page 2, page 10, page 17, page 35, and so on. So pick up the thread and run with the thread until you get to the end of the book. And then draw out that content, internalize it, make sense of it, and then plunge back into it. And then, of course, in that time, we can keep in touch, we can communicate, email, chat about it, or when you have dhikrs with Sheikh, please do bring these matters to him, because why? These books will remain with the Sheikh, and inshallah, hopefully, Sheikh will continue having workshops around the book, inshallah. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for your hospitality, for your friendliness and your warmth, and I pray that Allah grants us the opportunity to share time together again, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا فاستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. شكرا جزيلا.